Shalom and welcome to Inside Israel News, your source for unbiased and thorough analysis of Israeli news, politics, and current events in the Middle East. I'm your host, Isaac Kite. Sadly, this episode begins with tragedy. In Meron, at Mount Meron, this log, we had a stampede that cost the lives of some 45 people. Most of them Israelis, but also some Americans and Canadians involved in the effort to escape the area. Apparently, there'd been some kind of a structural collapse or something that had taken place, and in a panic, people tried to leave, and a lot of people were trampled to death, including a child as young as 9. So, to each of them, for their loss, we say, Menuhato began Eden, may his rest be in the Garden of Bliss. This tragedy had a lot of precursors, or a lot of warnings, I want to say. A lot of people concerned about these kinds of events. And naturally, before we've even finished mourning, while everyone should be focused more on the loss, recriminations and blame have already begun. Talk about no one was in charge, and there have been people picking on the Haredi. Apparently, when the IDF soldiers came to try to help, a number of female soldiers apparently were attacked by some of the Haredi men, and this kind of thing. Let's hold off on the recriminations for now. Obviously, there are already claims that Bibi Netanyahu was personally responsible for the whole thing because he's been coddling and patronizing the Haredi and letting them do whatever they want, even with the virus lockdowns and all of this, and refusing to crack down on their meetings and events and this kind of thing. And this is the kind of insanity we get when tragedies like this take place. Naturally, someone wants to blame it all on the prime minister because it's a right-wing prime minister. Obviously, if it had been Yair Lapid who was prime minister, that we'd have all these articles of how it wasn't the prime minister's fault, and he's a great guy and all this kind of thing. Typical media. But it is sad that people are already politicizing the event, even though it is a terrible tragedy to have lost so many human lives at once in such a terrible catastrophe. So with that, I'll move on to some of the other news going on. This should not be a surprise to my listeners, but if you're new, this may be, a little bit interesting. Mahmoud Abbas went ahead and delayed the election. So he's 15 years into his 4-year term that he was elected to in 2005, and he's going to continue to serve as president without elections. And again, as I mentioned last time, there were headlines saying, well, if he does this, he'll alienate international support and the international community. But after receiving $250 million from the United States in aid, I'm sure Mahmoud Abbas is feeling very alienated right now. That's $250 million of alienation right there. So anyway, this is not surprising. There was, as I mentioned in an earlier episode, there were polls that showed that people from who support Hamas don't believe that the Fatah movement that Abbas is part of would recognize the results if Hamas won, and the Fatah people said they didn't believe that Hamas would recognize the results if Fatah won, and so it's like nobody would recognize anybody's victory, and the whole thing would be a mess. Meanwhile, Mohammed Dalan, another member of the Fatah movement, and Marwan Barghouti, who's in Israeli prison. So Dalan is in exile in the Gulf in Bahrain because he's on the run from persecution by the Palestinian Authority. And you have Marwan Barghouti, obviously, who's in an Israeli prison for terrorism that he coordinated during the Second Intifada. And, of course, Ismail Haniyeh, who's the leader of Hamas, wants to run for president as well. So with all this factional infighting among Fatah and Hamas being pretty united, it's not that surprising to imagine that Hamas would end up winning those elections anyway. But obviously, the one person who is very unpopular, who is not likely to win, the one is Mahmoud Abbas. So he obviously has decided to delay elections and keep himself in office. And he'll feel really alienated in his palace-like, resort-like house in Ramallah with a big pool and a lot of nice rooms and good food, and he'll be comfortable in there, partially supported by the $250 million that the United States just gave him. that will help him continue to be a dictator and an oppressor of the peoples of the Palestinian territories. Exciting stuff. Mossad chief Yossi Cohen had a 1-hour meeting with Joe Biden about the Iran issue. Not quite sure, or at least let's just say there are no reports at the moment about what they discussed, but obviously the leaking security, this administration, giving away Israeli military and intelligence operations in Syria, which was recently released by Mohammad Javad Zarif, the foreign minister of Iran. And this crisis has just definitely created a greater rift between America and Israel. And now this meeting was an attempt to try to mend fences a little bit, perhaps. In any case, that meeting took place. Not clear what resulted, but the Biden administration has not made any significant announcements or changes of policy or approach. They continue to be bent on restoring the Obama-era Iran deal without preconditions and without any other stipulations or tougher sanctions or any kind of accountability. As I mentioned, the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, has continued to say that Iran is flagrantly violating all international agreements and commitments when it comes to uranium enrichment, and yet this is what they want to go back to, this toothless deal that Iran will almost certainly continue to violate, just as they've been violating all others. In any case, there continues to be discussions back and forth between the two governments. There have been some hints that through back channels that it's possible, depending on whom you ask, that the Biden administration may be signaling their support or let's just say not their lack of opposition to a third intifada as a punishment for Israel for failing to go along with them on the Iran deal, basically. Now, these kinds of back channel reports and rumors can be, they're specious and they can be wrong, but the source for these through the intel community, there's strong indications that the Biden administration is not favorable to Israel's position and not happy that Israel is agitating against them in the American political system. So it could be that this is the case, that this is not just some idle threat, that the Biden administration could sit back and green light, in essence, attacks on Israel as a punishment for Israel's unwillingness to go along with the Iran deal. And obviously, for Israel's security, they cannot go along with that deal because it's a terrible deal. It will lead to a nuclear-armed Iran who has the missiles to reach Israel and even Eastern Europe. And Iran is already working on ballistic missiles that could reach as far as Paris and London. So this could be a very dangerous situation should Iran develop nuclear weapons. Now that we're back from the break, let's talk about the political situation in Israel because it is coming to the end of Bibi Netanyahu's mandate to form a government. On Tuesday evening, his mandate will end, and by Wednesday, it will be up to the president to decide whether there will be a mandate given and to whom to form a government. President Reuven Rivlin, who goes by the nickname Ruby Rivlin, has indicated that he would like to nominate another candidate for prime minister to try to form a government, this time from the opposition, but the opposition hasn't been entirely clear as to who that should be. Should it be Yair Lapid, and then he would negotiate deals with other parties, or would it be Naftali Bennett? Now, there are those who want it to be Naftali Bennett because they hope that Bennett and Yamina could then go and negotiate a rotation with Bibi and try to go back to the concept of a right-wing coalition. And there are those who, on the left, who fear that if Bennett is given the go-ahead to form a government, that could result. And Bennett might negotiate in good faith with Lapid even, and if they somehow do not come together, come to some kind of agreement, then that could very well take place. There's nothing in that situation that would keep Bennett from then going back over to Bibi and saying, hey, I'll be prime minister for 2 years, and then you be prime minister for 2 years, and this kind of thing. Yair Lapid and his group continue to negotiate with Naftali Bennett, and there's been some back and forths on that. So Bennett is hoping that they can get some kind of an agreement reached before someone is nominated to serve as prime minister so that he can mitigate the fears of what would happen should he be given the mandate to form the government. And meanwhile, Lapid and the left are negotiating with him, and there's been some back and forth. Lapid wants to offer ministerial positions to Meretz and Labor, who are an important part of the coalition that he would put together. Obviously, together they have some 11 seats, so they are not, not to be sneezed at entirely. They're going to be an important part of his coalition, but at the same time, they are fairly minor parties, and so with Bennett is trying to keep them out of certain ministries so that the right, New Hope, Yamina, Yisrael Beitenu, that these right-wing parties can have key ideological posts, depending on how you define that. In any case, there's still some back and forth going on at the last minute as to who's going to hold what office and this kind of thing. It's not entirely clear that an anti-Bibi coalition will come together, but it isn't clear that they won't. They still have the possibility of the anti-Bibi group, that natural anti-Bibi coalition, which has 51 seats to their credit, right? 51 seats coming from Yair Lapid's Yesh Atid party, and from Benny Gantz's Blue and White Party, also from Labor and Meretz, and the Yisrael Beitenu National Right Party. New Hope with Gidon Sa'ar would also join that, and so there you have the 51. And with Yamina, that would then have 7 more seats, and that would put them at 58, and just 3 seats shy of a majority. And very much as Netanyahu discussed doing, Ra'am, the party led by Mansour Abbas, the Islamist Nationalist Party, could theoretically support the coalition from outside, thus giving them 4 more votes and a majority. Right? How long that coalition would last, how long it would hold together is not clear. Obviously, all of those parties would have it in their best vested interest to keep that coalition together for as long as they could possibly do so. Let's just say the far left parties won't be too eager to sabotage the coalition, because to do so could lead to another right-wing government, obviously. Also, the parties on the right that have been eager to get rid of Bibi Netanyahu would not want to sabotage the coalition such that it would give another election and thus another opportunity that Netanyahu could come back. And we don't know what Bibi is going to do. If this opposition coalition is able to form a government, they will kick him out of the prime minister's residence, kick him out of office, and he'll be gone. Bibi Netanyahu will still be a member of the Knesset and the leader of the Likud party, at least until that changes, whether he should choose to resign or the party should choose to hold elections for leadership or what have you. In any case, Bibi would continue to be a political figure, but the question would remain, if that coalition comes together, what would Bibi do and how would that impact matters? Now, if Bibi chooses to resign and leave office and let Likud hold new leadership elections, then that would put Likud in a very different position for future elections. It would then be in Likud's best interest to try to undermine the government and create new elections, because without Bibi, whoever leads Likud, quite possibly former Jerusalem Mayor Nir Barkat, would then have a fresh, clean slate to run and seek the prime minister's office. So that could be one scenario. Bibi could choose to stick it out in leadership of Likud in hopes that this coalition will fracture and break up and give him the opportunity to come back to government. So we don't know. This is the uncertainty of the moment. What we do know is that there was a last-minute meeting between Bennett and Bibi Netanyahu, where Bibi did not offer Bennett a rotation as prime minister. That's basically the only thing we know about the meeting. Otherwise, they're being very hush-hush about what was discussed at the meeting. It's entirely possible that it was just a last-ditch attempt by Bibi to try to bring Yamina into his coalition, and if he could find a way to do that and bring the religious Zionists in, he gets back to all the way up to 59 seats, and just 2 seats shy of the majority, which his original plan was that Ra'am could support the government from outside the coalition, and that would give him a majority. But it doesn't look as though that is going to happen. So religious Zionist leader Smotrich has said that Bezalel Smotrich, he will not back that plan, and so his 6 seats are out. And Bibi has been unable to come to terms with Yamina leader Naftali Bennett over rotation in office as prime minister and issues like that. So this is where things have kind of broken down for Bibi. Is this Bibi's last stand? Well, it could be. And Bibi has come back from political doldrums before. He's been down and out before and managed to rehabilitate his political career. But to do so a second time would be quite a thing. Now, he's been prime minister for 12 years straight, plus a 3-year stint back in the 90s, so he is the longest-serving prime minister in Israeli history. He has definitely had a major impact on Israeli politics, on national security and issues like that. So his legacy will be fairly secure. Even if Lapid becomes prime minister and there are center-left governments, Bibi's more free market approach will definitely go forward. They really can't reverse that. And at the same time, the younger generation having decided that they really like capitalism and freedom and greater opportunity to pursue their own economic interests. But on the other hand, the left will want to drive certain issues in a leftward direction, and it'll be up to the voters to decide whether they approve. Again, if a center-right coalition now forms that includes some left-wing parties, there'll be some policies in different directions. It'll be a little bit more moderate in that instance because there are far-right parties and far-left parties in the coalition, but they may be able to address some of Israel's festering social issues, as I've talked about, the effort to integrate the society into a more cohesive unit, kind of a pan-Israeli society, integrate in the Russians and Ethiopians and the Haredi and the Arabs to create a greater Israel that is more unified, but it will probably not reverse his economic policies. In terms of the defense situation, Israel has a strong defense. Israel has new allies in the Arab world in the name of United Arab Emirates and Bahrain especially, and Israel is in a very strong position. Now, I've heard a lot of people out there who are kind of there's much wailing and gnashing of teeth, so I want to clarify this because there's a lot of people out there freaking out. No, Bibi is going to be gone. What does it mean for Israel? Israel could whatever. It's all going to go straight to hell in a handbasket. So I wanted to make a point that a friend of mine really wanted to reiterate because as we were talking about the issue, and he just wanted to clarify, he's a veteran of the Israeli armed forces. He wanted to make the point that Israel will be fine. Israel has a strong intelligence community. They have strong military leadership. Their political leadership has been strong and stable lately, largely due to Netanyahu. But if he leaves, the prime minister's office will still be a strong place. The cabinet will continue to maintain Israel's security, and even if they're tested by Iran or other foreign powers, which Israel's likely to be tested by anyway, Israel will do just fine. Israel is not going to succumb to its enemies just because there's a little bit of a political back and forth, and Bibi Netanyahu is not in office. As the old saying goes, the graveyards are full of men who thought themselves irreplaceable. So this is the situation here, and good and bad things come to an end. Bibi Netanyahu has been prime minister for 12 years straight, 15 overall. He has done a fabulous job for Israel, and it may be time to hand the leadership off to the next generation. And if that happens, regardless of who that is, whether it's Yair Lapid or Naftali Bennett, who are the two main candidates being discussed at this point, Israel is going to be in good hands, and Israel is going to be well-led and well-governed. And if, for some reason, let's say Yair Lapid becomes prime minister and he proves to be incompetent or unequal to the task, his coalition will fracture and break up, and new elections will be held, and something will happen. Right? Something will change. This has been the case many times before, that Israel has had governments that proved not quite good enough under a certain circumstance, and they fell apart. After the Yom Kippur War, famously, Golda Meir's government had failed to provide adequate security and preparation for the possibility of an attack on Yom Kippur, and her government fell apart. It collapsed, and a temporary government was put together, led by Yitzhak Rabin, as it was. So even if Bibi falls, Israel will go on and be strong, and Israelis will reward and punish those who follow him based upon their conception of whether those people did a good job. So that will go forward from there. With that, I'm going to transition into talking a little bit about election reform. I've discussed a couple of possible election reforms in the past, but I just want to delve into this. This is something that the Israeli system needs to examine. Israelis really need to think about, because one thing that this has shown us is that while in the past Israel has been able to cobble together governments in tough situations, these last 4 elections have shown us how, depending on which narrative you want to go with, that one man's unwillingness to leave office when he can't put together a coalition, or on the alternative side, the unwillingness of certain parties to work with the most popular candidate for prime minister, whichever way you want to look at that, we've gone through 4 elections now. And if for some reason the parties here are not able to come together and form an opposition coalition in the next 15 days that will follow Bibi's mandate, there could be a 5th election even. And that has definitely demonstrated the weakness of this current type of election system. Now, back in the mid-90s, Yitzhak Rabin, before his assassination by Fruitcake, was pushing for this idea that Israel should craft its own constitution. And I've described how when Israel was founded originally, the idea behind the proportional Knesset was that it would represent all segments of society so that a constitution could be drafted by the first Knesset. But they had bigger concerns to deal with and somehow never came around to writing a constitution. Well, almost 75 years later now, Israel is struggling politically because they are stuck with a broken system. Now, in American history, we're all familiar with the Articles of Confederation and how that system didn't work very well early in American history, and so the leaders of the United States got together and drafted a constitution and couldn't address slavery, big issue. So 80 years after that, even, the Constitution underwent significant changes then with the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. So structural change is something that is necessary from time to time. And right now it might be a good idea, as things progress, for some kind of commission or committee to be established and set forth by the Knesset to begin discussing constitutional reform and the idea of establishing a real constitution for Israel. Leading up to that, I think there should be some more experimentation, since new elections are going to be coming relatively frequently. Even if the anti-Bibi crowd is able to, if that coalition is able to come together, it's still going to be fairly weak. And the chances that it will go more than 1 or 2 years, fairly low. So they should go ahead and enact constitutional reforms, electoral reforms and such, in hopes that that might improve the election outcome. And so I wanted to discuss what some of those might be. But it is about time Israel had a constitution, and they can experiment with a few different things electorally until the time comes to complete that constitution. Now, the first thing I want to talk about, and this doesn't relate directly to this crisis, although you can kind of see the influence of it, is the idea that Israel should have a directly elected president. The presidency in Israel is this ceremonial office, kind of like the Queen of England, not extremely powerful, but having one that is directly elected means that it moves that office truly above the, I want to say, petty politics of the Knesset. Right now, the president is elected every 7 years by a majority of the Knesset. So the president needs 61 votes, as will probably happen this summer. Under what circumstances, we don't know, because if no coalition comes together and there's a caretaker government, who will be president is an open question. Ruby Rivlin is coming to the end of his term. How would that happen? So unless the anti-Bibi coalition is able to form something, or there's some kind of unity government between Bibi and his opponents, something breaks somewhere, this could be the situation this summer, and you'd have a minority caretaker government unable to elect a president. Right. And that kind of thing would be irrelevant if there were direct elections for the president. And yes, that can be costly. If there are more than 2 candidates, that could end up being a runoff election, as is the case in most countries when you have a presidential election. But in any case, a directly elected president would have a little bit more power, let's just say, a little bit more of a mandate in these kinds of situations where you have questions of who should have the mandate and who should go first in building a coalition and that kind of thing, because then that president being directly elected would be more answerable to the people, or at least originate from the people. Now, that wouldn't solve the problem, but it would help. And it would create a situation where the president isn't necessarily a representative of the sitting government or on the same side. One thing I really did appreciate since Shimon Peres was elected president by the center-left Kadima party back in 2007, all the way up to 2014, while most of those years Bibi Netanyahu led the government, you had a president who was originally from labor and someone from the center-left, this honored statesman who was young when Israel was founded, and he and Golda Meir and people of their ilk were part of the young people who founded the country and were statesmen and stateswomen throughout its growing pains and all of these wars and struggles Israel went through in order to reach the modern time. Well, there was this beautiful situation there then where Shimon Peres as president could draw attention to certain issues or raise questions about certain policies without involving himself in the direct daily political life that could kind of keep the government on its toes and kept Bibi on his toes. And this idea that the president could be a champion of popular causes, even if the government doesn't want to address them, there's a positive side to that. And so, again, having a direct election means that the president will represent the people, whomever they wish that president to be, from Likud, from Yair Lapid's Yesh Atid party, or even just someone who is a popular businessman or popular leader in Israel, someone who is respected by the people. So that would be the first step. As for the Knesset, I've discussed a number of different options, from maybe a third or a half of the Knesset being elected from the single-member elective districts that we have over here in the U.S. and those like Britain, Australia, and Canada. Well, those are difficult to draw in Israel, but if they would have, say, 40 seats like that, it would probably or even 60, again, even half, kind of like the German system, it would strengthen the larger parties like Likud and Yesh Atid to the detriment of smaller parties, so that larger parties would have a greater opportunity to join the government, to form a government, having a larger bloc in the Knesset that would make it easier to reach a majority. That being said, another option, of course, is enhanced proportionality, the idea that you say take 20 seats out of the Knesset, we'll just set them aside for a moment, and have your proportional election among the remaining 100 seats. So if you win 10%, you win 10 seats instead of 12, right? And then once all the voting is done and we have final results, the party with the largest number of seats, the winning party purportedly, or who receives the mandate from the president, would then be, I want to say, awarded those 20 remaining seats, essentially just to form a government. And that wouldn't necessarily get those seats right away, but if they could form a government, they'll get those seats. That's enhanced proportionality. So you figure if, say, Likud had 25 seats in this situation, being given the first mandate to form a government, Bibi would then have a party the size of 45 seats, which would give him much stronger position in putting a government together, right? He would then only need the 16 remaining seats to get him to 61, right? So enhanced proportionality could be something that could go there. Then by not awarding the seats to that party, then if Likud is unable to form a government, then the president could award those seats to another party and another person to attempt to form a government, say giving Yair Lapid, let's just say he had 15 seats, he'd then have 35 and the ability to, again, try to form a government with a larger bloc. And in the case of a unity government, say between the two largest parties, maybe the seats could be awarded 10 to each. And then once you form a majority, you would get those seats and officially, and then the party would be able to govern. That's another approach. Greece does this. They have a 300-member parliament. They have a proportional election for 250 of the seats, and whoever wins the largest number gets the other 50. The thing there is that's a one-way thing. That happens just, the winning party gets the 50 seats, and then if they're not able to form a government, new elections have to be held. In any case, there are a couple of different ideas out there for how election reform could be done, and those all of them are worth a try, I think, and I might as well just kind of one at a time tick them off, try some of these things, and once Israel has arrived at a formula that the people like, that leads to better election results or what have you, then they can go forward from there. And I don't know if they were going to try perhaps having all of the seats, all 120 seats, be done by single-member elective districts, but it would be interesting to see what the results would be if that were tried. In any case, this could lead to the writing of a constitution that could then be put up for national referendum and allow Israel for once and for all to have a real constitution and a structure of government that could be, tweaked and adjusted over time in more minor ways, but that would give the country a more permanent politics, more stable policy, let's just say. Because this kind of thing with the 4 elections so far and all of that, this instability is not helpful. And it is directly a result of the proportional election system that Israel has and the lack of any kind of power that can try to, let's say, drive things forward or any kind of decisive election. In countries like the United States, it's much more decisive. If a certain party has a majority of the House of Representatives, they control the House of Representatives. That's simple. You single-member elective districts, majority is a majority. In a two-party system, obviously, it's easier to do that. But in Israel's multi-party proportional system, reaching a majority is proving to be quite a task. With that, I will close for the week. I'm getting ready to, along with some of my friends, relaunch the Political Vanguard website, politicalvanguard.com, and it will be a new home for Inside Israel News. So if you've been going to insideisrael.news, that will still be there, but the website will not be alone because Political Vanguard will also be hosting the Inside Israel News podcast, and it will be available there just beneath the contributors section, where I already write articles on American politics and on Israeli politics as well. New article there coming soon. We're going to relaunch the website this coming Wednesday, at least that's the plan. And once we have the new website up, we'll have all the new articles. And of course, we'll have all the Inside Israel News episodes, including this one. So please visit politicalvanguard.com. And after Wednesday, once we've had a chance to launch our new website, and you'll be able to see Inside Israel News there. So with that, I will say goodbye, להתראות.
אולי נפליגה בספינות מחוף אילת עד חוף שער ועל המשחטות הישנות יטעינו תפוחי זהב כל זה אינו משל ולא חלום זה נכון כאור בצהריים כל זה יבוא מחר אם לא היום